Hello friends, and welcome to this new video of our course Enabling Spring Security in a Spring Boot web application. In this video we will start talking about the Spring annotations. Now at the beginning, for those of you who wish to have a better look of understanding of the Spring Security annotations, then you can go to this article and we'll see which are the annotations and the roles that can be applied on in your web application, and what are these each role, what it can do on your web application. Now if you wish to have a better understanding about these annotations and about the complex expressions, and can go deeper with this article, remember that this is a very bigger subject, so unless you want to go professional with the expressions, then I believe this article would be sufficient for you to get you the basic insight about these expressions and their annotations and how you can use them in your web application. Okay, having said that, let's go back to the application. In the previous videos we were using the HttpSecurity, and we explained how do they verify each request coming from any user to access to your web application. Now we need to understand what are the difference between the HttpSecurity and the Spring annotations on the methods. When a user requests to access a resource in your web application, this request will go to first to a security chain filter, which will filter the request based on the resource that is required to be accessed. Once it's been filtered, it will be handled to the HttpSecurity. This HttpSecurity will apply all these rules that we have been applied, and then it will check whether this request have the authority, have the right to access the desired resource, the desired web page. If it has the right, has the authority, then this request will be submitted to the controller, and this controller will route the request to the desired web page, to the desired resource. This is how the HttpSecurity works. So it works before the controller, and also it handles the two ends. The one end, the user end, the other end is the web application end, and all it is done before the controller. On the other hand, when we talk about the Spring methods, the Spring method works after the controller and before the method of the controller. So here comes the actual uses of the method, the Spring annotation methods on the methods. It works after the controller and before the implementation of that method, which this annotation have been applied on. Now the method can be applied on different levels or different methods. It can be applied on the controller class level. It can be applied on the controller's methods level, the methods of that controller. Also these annotations can be applied on. Not only that, it can be applied on the service implementation methods, layer methods. It can be applied even on the DAO implementation layer methods. Even it can be applied on the user details interfaces methods. So all these layers, the Spring annotations, Spring Security annotations, can be applied upon, and we will see all the details about in a bit. First of all, let's take some understanding, a better understanding also about the annotations. Now to use the annotations, you need, first thing is that you allow your web application to use these annotations. Now we will do the allowing the annotations based on the Java configuration. We will not do it based on an XML configuration. So I need to draw your attention to this point. I'm using the Java configurations. The first thing is that you need to add these annotations on your configuration class. If you remember, When we were talking about the security class, I told you about this, and I told you later on we will talk about this. You need to have to add on your security configuration class, you need to add this annotations, enable global method security. Now it has basically one argument will be sufficient, but I will do all the three arguments and we will see what are the differences between them. But in general, if you add only this, if you use only this package, the pre-post enable equal true, this will be sufficient. Again, I will describe them, all three of them. So the first thing is that you need to add this annotation to your Spring security configuration class. Let us talk about each one of these packages. The first package is mostly used is the pre-post enable. This is the package that is mostly used, and the reason for that, it can use the Spring expressions language. As we have said, the Spring expression language will give you a more power when you query the authentication object and the principal object, because you can make complex expressions and you can use these complex expressions when you work with the authentication object or the principal object. This is one of the most important things about this package. That's why it is mostly used, widely used. This package, the main annotations which can be used with this package is the pre-authorize, pro-authorize, and some pre-filter or post-filter. The other two packages, which is secured and JSR 250. Now, the main objective of these annotations in here, which can be used, is almost same as these ones, as the pre-authorize and pro-authorize, but these two packages doesn't use the Spring expressions. So that's why I said it is enough if you use this package only, because this package has a more powerful uses and a better control over the objects that you use in your web application. But as I said, I will mention to them anyway. This package contains this important annotation, which is @secured, and JSR 250 contains, of course, it contains others annotations, but I'm talking on the most important one, which is related to our tutorial. This secured, @secured, and @allowed do the same thing as pre-authorize and pro-authorize. This is the general idea about these packages. Now, about the complex expressions that can be used, what's the meaning of the complex expressions? See, this package, let's take a look at this pre-authorize, for instance. You see how can we make a complex expression that can be worked on our authentication object, the principal object. So as you can see, this will give us a more powerful tool to query the authentication object, to extract the details, the user details that is within this authentication object, and it will also make a better control over this object, which one can use this object, which one has the right to access to this object, with this complex expressions that can be applied on this package, the post-pre package, the pre-post package. Okay, now let's apply these packages and these annotations on the web application. So if we see here, I'm going to take a closer look on it. This is a controller class, and this is a method, a request mapping method, which can do some work in your web application. Now, as you can see here, the first notice, now we can apply the annotations on the class level or the method level. As you can see here, we have applied some annotations in here, Spring annotations in here, and also at the same time we applied some Spring annotations on this method of the controller method in here. So we can do this in both ways, on the class level, on the methods level, and as well as we have said, we can also implement these annotations on the service methods, service layer methods, DIO layer methods, even the user details layer methods. We can also implement these annotations, the Spring annotations. Now the second notice, as we have said now, on the methods, on the layer, DIO layer, on the service layer, and the user detail service methods, we can apply these annotations on each one of them. So supposing that you have a sign up details, for instance service, you can apply these methods also in here. Now the third point is the precedence is for the method level. The precedence is for the method level. What does that mean? As you can see here, this is a class, a controller class, which we have annotated with pre-authorized, which has role user, role admin. That means only these two users, which has a role user and a role admin, can access to this controller. Now, what if we annotated the method of this controller with pre-authorized, has role admin only role admin? Can role user access to this method? No, cannot access to this method. Although these two roles can access to the entire controller, but the precedence of the annotation on the method is higher than the precedence of the annotations on the class. So in this case, the role user cannot access to this method, only role admin can access to it. This is point number 2C. If you have the meaning of it, annotations applied only on the very controller, not on other controllers, if any. Supposing your application have 2 or 3 controllers, and you have given this controller, this specific controller, by the name of main controller, you place an annotation with this restrictions, has role only. So only these 2 roles can access to this controller class. The other controller, let's call it secondary controller. The secondary controller, these annotations will not be applied on it also. So each controller has his own annotations applied on it itself. It doesn't apply on other controllers. I hope you got the point. Whatever annotations you place on a controller, it related to this controller, to this specific controller only, and it has no effect on the other controllers. Now, one important thing you need to notice: make sure that no conflicts occur between HTTP security configurations and the method level security annotations to any resource. What does that mean? You might restrict on your HTTP security, you might give some configurations for one resource to be accessed by certain user, but on this level, on the method level, you might give the same resource some other restrictions which may conflict with the HTTP security. So you need to make sure that these annotations, that these authorizations should not be conflicted between the method level and the HTTP security level. And this brings us to a very important question: when we use the HTTP security and when we use the method level security. Now, in general, from experience, from work, if you have a small project, if you have a small web application, let's say this web application has 10 pages. In this case, HTTP security will do for you the security in a good way. It's sufficient if you use the HTTP security. But this is only for small projects which has, let's say, 5-10 pages, that would be sufficient, even 50 pages maybe. So for small projects, HTTP security will do the work for you, but for projects that have dozens and dozens of pages, in this case you will lose track of which page has which security. You will lose the track of it. Supposing if you have a web application which has 100 pages or more than that, you will lose track of which page has which security. So in this case, it's preferable that you use a method authorization, because in this case the authorization will be on top of the on the method, so we can understand immediately, you can see it, which authorization this resource have, this method have. So this is the case. If you have a small project, then go for HTTP security. If you have a big project, then go for the method level security. Okay, this is all about this video, and the next video will carry on with the remaining. Thank you very much.